My brother called me from his honeymoon suite to accuse me of sabotaging the appetizers. That was the first thing he said after everything. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Thank you." Just, "Did you tell the caterer to mess up on purpose?" I let it ring to voicemail. Some silences do more damage than words ever could. My name is Leah. I'm your accuse. And for most of my life, I was the family's quiet footnote, the responsible one, the one who handled things, while my brother, Ryan, got the spotlight, the praise, and the blank checks. Have you ever worked twice as hard as someone just to be told you matter half as much? Comment yes or no. Here's where it started. I was 17 when my parents sat me at the kitchen table and explained, very calmly, that college was going to be a team effort. I thought that meant they were contributing. It meant I was. They slid a piece of paper toward me with a number on it. It was the amount they expected me to pay them every month after graduation. Like a subscription fee for being their daughter. Ryan was 15 at the time and had not even taken his first SAT practice test. His college fund was already allocated. Fully funded. Protected. Untouchable. I had a 3.8 GPA. A part-time job at a print shop. And an acceptance letter to a state university I applied to without telling them. Because I learned early not to expect applause for my wins. I paid them for 4 years. Every month. While I also paid my own student loans. Ryan took 5 years to graduate. Switched majors twice. My parents threw him a graduation party that cost more than my first semester of tuition. I cried once in my car in a grocery store parking lot. Then I went home and opened a savings account they never knew existed. That savings account grew. So did I. But nothing prepared me for what happened the spring I turned 28. My fiancé, Evan, and I had been engaged for 7 months when we booked Renmore Hall for our wedding. It was a restored estate outside the city. White columns, rose gardens, a ballroom with original hardwood floors. We put down a $32,000 deposit. I remember walking the grounds with the coordinator. Evan squeezed my hand while I laughed at something she said. And I thought, this is mine. I built this. Nobody handed it to me. 6 weeks later, my mother called while I was eating lunch at my desk. Ryan and Chloe picked a date, she said. I waited. September 21st. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Mom, that's our date. There was a pause. The specific kind of pause that tells you the other person already knew what they were going to say before they called. Well, she said. They found a venue they love and the date was available. Their invitations are already printed. Already printed? I repeated. Her voice slid into that familiar tone. Equal parts exhaustion and gentle condescension. The tone that always meant, stop making this difficult. Ryan has been planning this for a long time, she said. I almost laughed. He had been engaged for 9 weeks. That night I told Evan. He went quiet in the way he does when something genuinely surprises him. Which is rare. He deliberately picked your date, Evan said. And my parents are going to his... I replied. Evan stared at me for a moment. Then said, let them go. I thought he meant, let them go to Ryan's wedding. He meant something else entirely. I just didn't understand it yet. The calls started the next week. First my mother asking if I could recommend our florist to Chloe. Then my father asking if I still had the string quartet contact because Ryan wanted live music. Then Ryan himself. Texting at 9:18 p.m. asking where Evan and I were registered so he could make sure we didn't overlap. I didn't respond. Not because I was being dramatic. Because I was done feeding them access to my life. Here's something my family didn't know about me. They never asked what I actually did for work. They called me the numbers girl, like it was a hobby. In my professional world, I'm Leah Hart. Not Leah Grayson. My maiden name. I started using my professional name years ago for one reason: privacy. I work as an external compliance investigator, the kind brought in when a company smells fraud but doesn't know where it's leaking. 4 months before that phone call from my mom, I was contracted by a mid-sized medical distribution company called Norvell Supply. Their board flagged impossible growth in one region during a market downturn. People call that success. I call it a red flag. When I took the contract, I had no idea my brother worked there. Norvell had multiple offices. His name wasn't in my initial packet. I found out on my 3rd day on site. I walked past a row of sales desks and saw a framed photo of my mother on someone's shelf. I stopped, looked closer. The nameplate said, Ryan Grayson. I kept walking. That evening, I disclosed a familial connection to one employee. I documented it. I requested recusal if his division came into scope. Then his division came into scope. Outside counsel reviewed my disclosure and came back with a decision. Because the irregularities were severe enough to involve law enforcement, they wanted me to continue for continuity. The board agreed. They didn't know he was my brother. They knew only that I disclosed a family link immediately, and that I had a clean record across 10 years of work. I want to be very clear. I did not go looking for revenge. What I found was there to be found. I started with his numbers. Ryan's region showed a 39% year-over-year increase in new client acquisitions over 2 years. In a market where competitors were shrinking, I pulled his new client roster, 13 accounts. I verified them one by one. 3 had expired business licenses. 2 traced back to mail forwarding services. 1 didn't exist at all. A company called Harbor Meridian Partners. No registration. No address. Nothing. Then I pulled payment records. Norvell had been paying those entities for consulting partnerships. Each invoice was modest. Between $7,000 and $19,000. Over 2 years, the total was $294,000. I traced the receiving accounts. 2 routed through a business checking account opened under an LLC registered out of state. The registered agent listed on that LLC was Ryan D. Grayson. I sat very still in the small office Norvell assigned me, listening to the city hum outside the window like nothing in the world had changed. And I thought about my mother's voice. Stop making this difficult. I printed everything. I delivered preliminary findings to outside counsel and the board chair, a woman named Diane Voss, who had the stillness of someone who has seen enough greed to stop being surprised by it. She read my report, then looked up and asked, "How fast can you finish the full analysis?" 2 weeks, I said. I worked every day. I came home late. Evan had dinner waiting. He didn't ask questions. He knew there were things I couldn't say yet. In week 2, I found more. A second scheme buried in the event and marketing budget. Trade conferences, client dinners, vendor bookings. Ryan had directed nearly half of those contracts to 2 vendors with no websites and no verifiable history. Their address matched the fake invoicing entity. That added another $61,000. Total embezzlement, $355,000. Then I found the email. Ryan, writing to a college friend 8 months earlier. Casual and arrogant. By the time they run a real audit, I'll be gone. Dad's cash is covering the wedding anyway. I've got runway. Dad's cash. 2 months earlier. My mother had bragged they were contributing $90,000 toward Ryan's wedding. I couldn't understand how. My dad was semi-retired. My mom worked part-time. They owned their house outright. So I checked public records. They had taken out a home equity line 6 months earlier. $110,000. My parents had borrowed against their house to fund a wedding for a son who was simultaneously stealing from his employer and calling their sacrifice runway. I finished my report on a Thursday morning. Diane Voss read the executive summary, set it down, and made 2 calls. One to counsel, one to a federal contact. Then she looked at me and said, "This will move quickly." The wedding was 3 weeks away. Now let me tell you the part that made the universe feel almost scripted. Renmore Hall, the venue Ryan and Chloe had booked, was one of Evan's properties. Evan owns a small group of event venues. He bought Renmore as a restoration project. Ryan didn't know that. He had met Evan twice and called him your contractor. So when Norvell's legal team contacted the venue to coordinate timing, because they wanted the principal target present and identifiable, they reached Evan. Evan listened, said yes, came home, told me. We sat at our kitchen table that night, and Evan said, "I want you to know I didn't set this up." "I know," I said. "I also want you to know," he continued. "We're doing this because he stole from people. That's reason enough." It was on September 21st. I wore a silver gray dress I bought months earlier for no reason. I put on earrings I gave myself after my first major case led to a criminal referral. With edges. We arrived early. Guests flowed in. The garden lights came on. Ryan saw us first. He walked over with that familiar smugness. "Didn't think you'd actually show," he said. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied. He looked me up and down. "Nice dress. Didn't know auditors made that kind of money." "Good ones do," I said. He didn't catch the warning. He never did. The ceremony started. Chloe looked genuinely happy. I felt a sharp ache for her, because she had no idea she was standing in the center of something rotten. Reception. Dinner. Toasts. My father's voice cracked while he praised his brilliant son. Then Diane Voss arrived. She didn't rush. She didn't announce herself dramatically. She moved like a person used to boardrooms and courtrooms. She stepped to the microphone and said, "Excuse me." The room quieted. "My name is Diane Voss. I'm the chair of the board at Norvell Supply," she said. "I'm here because accuracy matters." Ryan went still. 3 months ago, our company commissioned an independent forensic review. She continued. "Tonight, I want to acknowledge the investigator responsible for that work, Leah Hart." Every head turned. My parents turned too. My mother's face went through confusion, then recognition, then something that looked like fear. Diane kept her voice steady. The audit identified systematic fraud across 26 months, false vendor invoices, shell companies, misappropriation totaling approximately $355,000. Ryan's chair scraped back. He didn't make it 2 steps. 2 agents, dressed like guests, moved in from opposite sides with practiced calm. One spoke his name. One placed him in cuffs. Chloe made a sound I will never forget. My mother said my name. Not Ryan's. Mine. Like she wanted me to take it back. Ryan didn't yell. He didn't plead. He just stared at me. And for the first time in my life, the entitlement on his face cracked into something else. A realization. The floor he stood on was never as solid as he assumed. They walked him out through the side entrance. The room exhaled into chaos. My parents asked to speak outside. We stood on the terrace under white lights and roses that still looked perfect, like nothing ugly had happened beneath them. "You knew," my father said. "It wasn't anger. It was confirmation." "I found out through my work," I said. I disclosed it immediately. The board decided how to proceed. You could have come to us? My mother whispered. I looked at her and asked one question. When I was 17 and you slid that number across the table, the money I had to pay you every month, did it ever occur to you that you would never ask Ryan to do the same? Neither of them answered. Before I tell you what I offered my parents next, do you think I should have walked away completely? Or helped them recover the money they borrowed for his wedding? Comment 1 or 2. I took a breath. That venue deposit, I said, was paid from the equity line you took out. Evan and I will make sure it's returned to you. My mother looked up, eyes bright. Why would you do that? Because you're still my parents. I said, and I'm not interested in watching you lose your house for a son who used you. My father's jaw worked like he was trying to swallow something sharp. I'm not doing this for recognition. I added, I'm doing it because it's right. That has always been the difference between him and me. Later, Chloe found me near the garden wall. Composed in the way people are composed when falling apart is not an option. She asked if I knew before today. I told her the truth. I knew for 2 weeks. There was no version of this that didn't hurt her. And I was sorry. She nodded slowly, then said, He asked me to transfer $15,000 into a new account for the honeymoon. I didn't. Something felt wrong. I told her she listened to the right feeling. And I meant it. 4 months later, Ryan took a plea deal. Federal time. Restitution. Norvell recovered part of the money through seizures. My parents sold their SUV, cut their spending, quietly started rebuilding the life they almost gambled away. And the most shocking part came on a rainy Tuesday morning in February. My dad called at 7 a.m. He never calls that early. When I answered, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we made you feel like you had to earn your place in this family. You never did. I stared out the window at the rain and felt something in my chest loosen. Just slightly. I know. Dad. I said, I know. Some endings aren't fireworks. Sometimes the best ending is a man finally saying the truth out loud. If you want more stories where the golden child finally meets the receipts, hit subscribe. The next one is even worse.